call gutters eaves troughs. Do you know why that is?
No idea.
I don't either.
It's by the eave.
Right.
And
it's a trough.
And it's a trough.
Yeah.
That would
I don't
be
know
my
if it's
guess.
not an inaccurate description.
No.
Right.
I don't know if
In fact, it's more
Makes more
descriptive
sense
than
than
gutter.
gutter.
Yeah, it's better.
Welcome to the Fine Homebuilding Podcast, our weekly discussion of building, remodeling, and design topics aimed at anybody who cares deeply about the craft and science of working on houses. This is Senior Editor Patrick McComb. I'm joined by Associate Editor Matt Milham,
Hello.
Kylie Jacques, Design Editor,
Hi there.
and producer Jeff Rose.
Hello.
Email us your questions to fhbpodcast@taunton.com. You can find previous podcasts and check out the show notes at finehomebuilding.com/podcast. Do you guys want to start with your projects or reader feedback?
Go with the feedback.
All right, so is that okay with you, Kylie?
Absolutely.
So we heard from Joey from outside Boston. Joey wrote us a few episodes back regarding his cold crawl space. It was so cold, in fact, it had a unit heater to heat the crawl space to keep the pipes from freezing. You remember
Crazy
that?
one, yeah, a little while ago.
So he wrote to us, thanks for your advice about insulating my crawl space. At your suggestion, I air sealed around the rim joist and pulled down the bat insulation from between the floor joists. I found only one mouse carcass. I think he's doing okay. I wrapped the walls in 2-inch rigid foam. You'd mentioned fasteners in the podcast, but PL foam board adhesive seemed simpler and appeared to work. I had a hard time fitting rigid foam in the area of the rim joist due to lots of plumbing and electrical intrusions, so I opted to reuse some of the more forgiving bat insulation there. I'm a little embarrassed of the messy spray foam job, but this is a barely 2-foot-high space that anyone would have to shimmy through the window to see, so I'm hoping no one ever does. I think I even felt a difference in temperature over the last few cold days of the season. Thanks again. Did you guys see Joey's work here?
I did.
I think he did a great job. I only have one concern, Joey, and that's that you're not supposed to leave this polystyrene insulation exposed, right?
As long as he doesn't have mechanicals down there, he's probably okay.
Okay,
Takes
well,
that little unit heater out,
Yeah.
it might be okay.
you can cover it with plywood. If it worries you, I would tell you to do that because it is a code violation, and if you might have some difficulty when you go to sell the house if that's what you're planning to do at some point. But looks great. You can also put drywall on it, but I think that would be much harder. It's always nice to hear from you guys when you follow or don't follow our advice and any, developments in your questions. We always enjoy hearing about that. So
Are those copper pipes?
those are copper pipes. Have you
Nice
seen
work,
copper
Joey.
waistlines that big? Those are big copper pipes. People did that in the 50s and 60s, but then
Yeah, that's
copper's,
what I got in my house.
Copper's very expensive, so
Right.
they went to plastic as soon as it was possible. You have copper waistlines?
Yep.
How are they holding up?
They seem to be fine,
People start to put Drano down them, and then that completely destroys them.
I would imagine so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't use that stuff anyway.
Right.
Yeah, if you
I've
saw
been
Breaking
guilty
Bad,
of using it.
you're not using any kind of really strong acid in your metal anything.
That is the worst scene of any thing I've ever seen. Do you know what
Sure.
he's talking
No.
about? How do we describe this?
Liquefied body parts falling through the ceiling.
Yeah, so they put...
Oh, you're talking about Breaking Bad?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, right.
They
I did see that.
Yeah, the bathtub falls through the ceiling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it wasn't the whole bathtub. It was the bottom of the bathtub.
Right.
With all its contents.
Yeah, just the parts that acid was touching.
Oh, God, that was so horrible. I had nightmares.
Yeah, that
for
was repulsive.
days after that. Moving on. This is feedback on episode 179. Good afternoon, Patrick, Matt, and Kylie. Thank you for your informative and interesting podcast. I have learned so much about building science. A recent show included a discussion of timber framing. I'm a professional timber framer in the central Maine area working for Kennebec Timber Framing. We only build timber frames. Brett asked a question concerning the difference between a hybrid and a pure timber frame. Is that the what we taught?
Yeah, I think so.
Pure timber frame.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you remember that conversation?
I wasn't here for that one.
I think you were. Maybe not.
No. Rob was.
The better term might be hybrid versus traditional. We build traditionally. A traditional timber frame uses mortise and tenon joinery, is secured with hardwood pegs, and uses no butt joints. Instead, it uses scarf joinery, large dovetails, and other furniture-like connections. Hybrids can still be effective and the price point is generally lower. They often use large black metal plates, or as you said, they can be essentially a stick-framed house with timber frame elements. A traditional timber frame can be finished off in a few ways. You touched on them, but let me elaborate. One method is to build a cavity using KD lumber that isn't load-bearing or structural. There's no need to worry about roof loads or shear forces. The timber frame is the skeletal system, if you will. The cavity is attached to the frame on the exterior and needs to be strong enough to hold up the sheathing, wall finishes, wiring, insulation, etc. This exterior shell wouldn't bump a mortise and tenon structure into the category of a hybrid. The other method is with polyiso panels. We manufacture and press our own panels in our shop. We've started using zip system instead of regular OSB as our panel sheathing, which solves the trickiness of panel air sealing. We also route 2 grooves in the edges of our panels, one for expanding spray foam and the other for a spline. Our panel system is designed to be attached to a timber frame, not as a standalone SIP house, SIP house. I hope my email was helpful to you guys. Please check out our Instagram feed at Kennebec Timber Framing and keep up the good work. Okay, so I finally got my answer on what is a hybrid timber frame, at least according to this company, and that's helpful to me.
Yeah.
So it either means that they're using easier joinery or they're just using parts of a timber frame.
Yeah.
So what have you been working on?
Oh, let's see. I hand washed my house. I feel really proud of having done that.
Tell me what that means.
So I hadn't gotten the wet and forget or spray and forget.
Okay.
But I had gotten Mr. Clean's magic eraser.
So you went over your whole house with the magic eraser?
All right, I exaggerate. 2 sides of my house. And I was only able to get up just so high, but I got the worst of it. And it was amazing.
Yeah.
I'm not waiting for anything to happen. It's done.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Very good.
Very little work, very little effort, except for being on the ladder, which...
Was your arm sore from scrubbing?
I didn't have to scrub. I literally just wiped away.
What?
One pass. It was so magical that I took a video.
Well, we'll have to put that up on the podcast page for
It's
sure.
an option.
So tell me again, the magic eraser you used?
Right.
Just one?
No, you go through them pretty quickly. I ended up using 6.
What's different about that between like in a sponge and soapy water?
It must be, actually, I will say, there's no place on the box that really gets into the ingredients.
That's the magic part.
And,
Yeah.
and it occurred to me about halfway through that I should probably be wearing gloves.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I did put them on. My skin was getting irritated, so there's
Yeah.
got to be bleach in there, or I'm not sure. It didn't smell like bleach,
No.
but
It's just kind of a weird, grainy texture
You know,
almost to the thing.
Rob
Even
had
though it
said
doesn't scratch.
Rob had said it was going to be grainy. It wasn't grainy. It was super smooth. So I don't know if there are different types, but
Yeah,
that's
maybe.
what I bought, and it worked, and it was so cheap.
That's
Yeah, they're
great.
Not, they're
Yeah.
not that expensive.
Yeah.
And
It's
how
like
long did this take you?
$9. You guys are still waiting on your houses to become.
I think I finally decided.
I'm waiting because I haven't sprayed it yet.
I think I've decided mine
spray
is
and
looking pretty
forget
good.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right,
Okay.
yeah.
One thing that it didn't get off was the rust stain from that boot on my chimney.
Yeah.
I can't get that off.
That's hard to get off.
And I did tape the boot with black electrical tape.
Sweet.
Patrick says it's a hack. I worked so hard on it.
Life hack. Yeah. No.
So this weekend I'm planning to mortar a wall.
Okay.
You're just going to point
I'll
the
bite.
joints. Yeah.
So what wall? Where?
It's a little retaining wall. It's only about 1.5 feet tall. And the guy that I bought the house from had done it, or had done a section of it, and he didn't finish it off, so it's kind of constantly
really pretty, that
crumbling.
wall.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah.
I think it's going to look nice. I also have.
So he mortared much of it, but not all of it. So you're going to
I
do
would
the
say
rest?
he mortared about 1/4 of it. So yeah, I'm going to do the rest of it.
All right.
There's another one down by the riverbank that is a much bigger project, but if I enjoy doing this one, I'm going to do that one too. It won't keep the riverbed. I mean, it won't keep the water out, but
No.
it'll look nice. It defines my garden.
That's cool.
I've never mortared. I have to watch a video. Do we have a video on that?
Probably.
Yeah.
You were the last one to do a masonry story, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I've done some masonry stuff.
You have?
Yeah.
What's your masonry experience?
Mostly school related and here.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, I mean, building block walls, brick walls.
You got any
Yeah.
tips other than wear knee pads?
Yeah, I've got all kinds of tips for you.
Okay.
Don't when you're filling those joints, like if you get any overflow or whatever, don't immediately try to wipe it off. Let it harden up a little bit before you
But not
get it off.
hard.
But not hard. Yeah, just let it harden up enough so you're not smearing it all over the faces of the rock because
That's a
it
good
will
tip.
stain.
Okay.
Yep.
What kind of mortar?
Probably regular type S Mason's mortar. You might want to add a little more Portland to it to make it flow a little better.
Okay.
And then, yeah.
Isn't that a
water.
bad idea with natural stone, though? Isn't that going to make it spall?
I don't know if it may make it spall,
What
but
does spall
it'll
mean?
make it hold up.
Break.
Oh.
Yeah,
I just say break.
if the mortar's harder than the rock, then
I see.
you can end up with problems.
Okay.
It's
But
better to err on the side of soft mortar, right? You're going to
Yeah.
have to redo it more often, but it's less damaging to the stone if it is harder than the stone.
Okay. Thanks, guys.
I don't know anything about masonry. I tried to do a little block wall one time and found it to be very difficult.
Mm.
Yeah.
At a point, I started like using my hands to put the mortar on the on the block. It's like I'm getting more on this way instead of with the trowel.
Yeah. But you're going to do it with a bag, right? You're going to use a grout bag?
I'm not sure yet. I'm going to talk to my favorite guys at the local hardware store. They'll help me figure out the right materials and tools. I'm most
So how do you
excited
know
about
that they
the
know what
tools.
they're doing?
I've been going there for a while now, and they've always given me good advice. And you guys just gave me some tips, so
Well,
I think I feel I can do
I would
this.
always be worried about what people tell you at the hardware store or the home center, because oftentimes it's not based in
It's not
facts.
your regular true value.
It's not. No, that's a good place.
Yeah.
You're talking about the one in Southbury?
Yeah.
Yeah, they know what they're doing. What have you been doing?
A little tiny bit on my shed. I got to work on it all day Saturday, and then it rained. And it's
We had
been
a
raining
lot of
ever
rain.
since.
Yeah, we had a lot of rain.
Yeah, so
Are you keeping the thing tarped, or are you just letting it get soaking wet?
it's pretty much getting soaking wet. Part of it is tarped. The part that's going to be the greenhouse is basically tarped. But the rest of it, not so much.
Yeah, what can you really do?
Yeah, I'm just trying to get the inside dried out a little bit because I'm just going to prime in there and, basically just so it's not.
So you're
wood
painting
walls.
before the roof is on?
Oh, not probably. No.
Okay.
But maybe. I mean, it could be a couple weeks before those panels come in for the roof.
Oh, okay.
So I ordered them already, but
So you bought fiber reinforced panels to allow sunlight into the planning part of your potting shed.
yep,
I gotcha.
exactly.
You should paint the picture that you painted for me of you up on the ladder
Doing.
trying to get those sheets of plywood in place.
Oh yeah, yeah. Because I mean, it's it's two intersecting building portions, roof lines, and trying to get the plywood up there to to sheathe the valley.
There's not even enough room for you to be
There's
up
not
there.
enough room
Yeah.
to be up there, and so I'm going up this ladder, and I have to be real close to the to the roof on one side, and I'm trying not to bump the sheathing into the roof on the other side, and I just kept bumping one end or the other, and it kept knocking it out of my hands when I was near the top of the ladder every time.
Prior to that, he had been sloshing through compost slop.
Yeah, so it was a muddy mess, and a lot of fails. It would have been funny. It was like Sisyphus, basically just walking up and down the ladder, picking up the same piece of plywood over and over again.
Weren't you tempted to send up a little stage on the ground level?
I was, but it would basically I'd be setting up into the garden, what is now the garden area. Yeah, because that can't wait.
Right.
Plants can't wait. They got there's a limited period of time when they'll grow.
This is when you plant.
Yep.
Well, I wish you great luck with that.
What are you working on, Patrick?
I was working on my truck last weekend. I put a new bumper on and new headlights in. My headlights were all foggy from its age, and the bumper had holes in it. So
Bug spray? Use a bug spray trick?
I bought all new headlights.
Oh.
It was like $100 for two of them on Amazon. So I was like, well, that is totally worth doing.
Bug spray is like $2.
So you spray this on and it takes the yellow away, really?
Yeah, you just buff it out with an old sock. Yeah, smooths it right out.
So I've heard of people who buy these kits at the auto parts store that includes like a buffing wheel and abrasives, or some of them just have the solution in sandpaper. And I just hear it takes forever, so I was like not willing to spend the time to do that.
If you've ever gotten bug spray on not any kind of plastic, but a lot of kinds of plastic, it melts it almost immediately.
Yeah, so I actually have a light switch in the barn that I touched after applying DEET. And
Wait, back up. What were you applying? DEET? Why-
That's the pretty much most effective, almost only
tick
effective
spray.
Yeah.
Man.
I don't like to use it, but it's better than getting Lyme disease, right? And I put it on my clothes more than on my skin, right?
Okay.
You put it on your boots or whatever. But yeah, and then I touch that light switch, and there's like my fingerprint is burned into it with this black smudge.
Yep.
And it won't come off.
Yeah, it's gonna be there forever.
Can you say toxic?
Do you think
Can
it's
you say
toxic?
effective? Yeah. I'm not saying it's good for you.
I don't know. Sometimes it's the only thing that works. Like I said, I don't like using it, but
Yeah.
we were in a provincial park, and I guess it was New Brunswick. My wife and I on a honeymoon. And it was so buggy, we wanted to die. And that was like the first time I've used it, and it was the only thing that worked.
Yeah.
Like they laughed at the off. They're like,
Yeah.
we love that.
Well, you got to get the full, like the 99.9% DEET off.
They have that?
Yeah, the deep woods off.
So we tried the deep woods off, and that was not cutting it. So we ended up getting Ben's 100% DEET.
Okay.
And that stuff works really well.
Yeah.
But it also does eat your plastic light switches. So we got through our feedback already. Let's go to a question. This is about bath fans, which next to roof ventilation and crawl space air sealing is our third most popular query, I would say.
Yeah. I don't think I got any advice for this guy.
You don't?
I don't know if I do.
All right, well, we'll see. Ethan writes, FHP podcast crew. I've got some bath fan questions for you guys. My wife and I bought a house a few months ago, a brick ranch built in 1959. It has 2 bathrooms. One of the bathrooms has a window, so there is no bath fan. So you can omit the bath fan if you have a window in the bathroom, but we all agree that makes no sense because what are you going to do? Open the window in the middle of winter or in the middle of summer when you're air conditioning?
That is what I do, but
It's
not typical.
it doesn't seem like a good way to save money.
No.
So the other bathroom does have a bath fan, but it doesn't work, and it's ducted into the attic anyways. My next project is going to be installing new bath fans in both bathrooms. The bathrooms are right next to each other in equal distance from the gable end of the house. I've attached a plan, a section, and photograph for reference. We live about 15 minutes west of Asheville, North Carolina, if that helps. Here are my questions. I don't really want to punch 2 new holes in the roof. Am I close enough to vent the fans out the gable end? Is there a way I could connect the ducts at some point to only have one penetration in the gable or roof? If this were your house, how would you install these fans? I think I'm going to dive right in this because I think I got a pretty elegant solution. What you need, Ethan, is a Fantech remote fan. And I think we have a photograph, right, Jeff? So this is a remote-mounted fan. This is a centrifugal type fan. It looks like if you guys have ever seen a turbocharger on an automobile. It fits in the ductwork, and you put it up in the attic, and it can accommodate 2 outlets. And either one, you turn it on, and it's going to suck air then from both of them. And it seems like a awesome solution because then you only have one penetration on the roof or the gable end, and I think because these things are pretty powerful, going to the gable end would not be a problem.
Do you care at all that you're going to be venting both bathrooms
at the same time?
At the same time, all the time, whether you want to or not?
They're super quiet, so I don't think it's a problem, but it is a potential concern.
Mm-hmm.
Concern or consideration? What's the concern?
You're wasting energy, right?
Okay.
And you're sucking, anytime you have a bath fan running, you're sucking conditioned air out of the space. So you only want to use it as you absolutely have to, right?
Right.
Yeah, because
Okay.
this thing is going to be oversized for either bathroom because basically it has to be sized to be able to vent both bathrooms at all times.
But that's true, of course. But the efficiency of it is such that it's not going to use a lot of electricity. Yes, it's going to be sucking the air out of your house.
Yeah.
You don't really leave bath fans on for all that long anyway.
No, and you could control it with a humidistat if you wanted to be sure you were only running it minimally.
Yeah. As far as the run, I mean, he's going at least 16 feet, it looks like.
Yeah, that's really not a problem for these things.
Yeah. As long as he doesn't have a lot of bends. As long as he's going straight.
And if these are designed to be connected with flex duct, I'm not the biggest fan of round flex duct, but if you install it correctly, it works pretty well. And that means that when you, it has an inner liner, which has like what it looks like a slinky inside wrapped with reinforced plastic duct. And you have to pull that tight to the termination and tight to the fan motor, and then zip tie it, and then you slip the insulation over that connection and then zip tie that. The key is you really want to pull these connections tight, otherwise they have a lot of static losses. That is to say, they don't move as much air as they should if the ductwork isn't pulled tight.
You're not using tape on that?
No. Big zip ties are the way to do that.
Okay.
And 2 or 3 of them is not unreasonable.
Mm-hmm.
Have you installed one of those?
Yeah, I had one of these in my house in Stowe, and I loved it. I had the light kit it's in the grill. Mm-hmm. And mine had halogen lights. They're more modern now. They have LEDs or CFLs. But what I love about it is they're very effective and they're super quiet because the fan motor is actually outside the living space up in the attic. And the ductwork is already insulated, so you don't have to worry about condensation, although he's in a pretty warm place, so that'd be less of a concern.
Yeah.
What do you think? Does that pass the sniff test?
Yeah, I think that sounds all right.
You think it passes the sniff test?
I have absolute confidence in your solution.
I mean, the main reason I said I don't really think I have any advice for this guy is because I have a sort of similar solution, although I don't have really any way to get out the gable end without running it about 20 or more feet before I go out the gable.
Well, I would want to talk to Fantech, but I don't think that would be a problem once again. Mm-hmm. I mean, especially if you run the duct straight without a lot of bends, as you suggest.
Yeah.
And the duct is big. I think it's 2 6-inch ducts connect to the fan inlets, and then 1 8-inch duct leaves the fan housing and goes to the outside.
Okay.
So, the wall cap or roof cap where the duct terminates is going to be pretty big. So that might be an aesthetic concern if that kind of thing worries you.
Yeah. He's just going to run it up through that gable end vent.
And not terminate it the right way?
Yeah.
Don't do that. Don't do that. So, hope that helps. This is from Austin in Columbus, Ohio. Hi, gang. Love the show. I'm an avid listener and a subscriber to the magazine. Thank you, Austin. I started listening last fall and after acquiring a 1930 Craftsman that's been vacant for about 12 years. It's a total gut job, and I'm looking forward to applying some solid building science and fine home building principles to the project. Because of this project, I've become a follower of all things building science. Joe Steebrook, Christine Williamson at the Building Science Corps, Building Science Podcast, Matt Reisinger's Build Show, GBA, and you guys. I'm in pretty deep. In fact, I'm taking the day off work to go see Steve Basic while he's in town.
I love that. That's the way to spend a vacation day.
Oh, that's hilarious. I'm doing this project myself, and I have a ton of questions I want to ask about my house, but I'll start with the most immediate. I've included a couple of photos, and yes, I know the rafters are undersized and overspaced. I have plans to deal with that. As you can see, our house currently has a shed dormer at both the front and back of the house. Our plans for remodeling include expanding both dormers to the full width of the house. Yes, the greedy dormer. The dormer walls will bear on the existing exterior walls, on the gable ends anyway. We do plan on keeping the overhangs all around the house. It's perhaps not the most refined look, but we need the space. It's a relatively small house, and we need every square foot as we have 2 kids already and are beginning the process of becoming foster parents. Plus, my wife works from home. This would be a relatively straightforward project, except that the house, other than the dormers, is built of brick. So this is masonry double Y construction. So
is it double Y though?
Yeah. Yep. It's not. I got clarification from him.
Okay.
It's not a veneer. It's built up. It's built from bricks. My question is, how would you go about building the new dormer walls on top of the brick at the gable ends? I can hear Patrick. I wouldn't. I'm going to get to that in a little bit here. How would I attach a sill plate to the angled brick walls? Use mortar to make a flat but angled surface, then bolt through? That doesn't seem sturdy to me. I think your instincts are good so far. The gable is about a 7/12 pitch. The dormer and new roof line is a 3/12. I've read tons of the Taunton 4Pros by Pro series, but I've not been able to find this detail in any books or online anywhere.
And there's probably a reason.
Go ahead.
Would it make sense to remove the roof altogether, and reframe it with a continuous shed dormer?
you're smart. That's what I was going to say. Like, take the masonry down to the ceiling level and then build the whole thing out of wood frame. Yeah. But there are
But it's still the connections, I think.
That's the part that worries me, and I would want some help from an engineer. But, like, to attach a plate to a masonry building is challenging, right? You have to, like, mortar in the anchor bolts, presumably.
Yeah. I mean, that was my thought. As long as you're taking these existing dormers out, or the idea of, like ripping out most of the rest of the roof, just take the entire roof off. Don't even worry about building dormers. Just build a new second floor.
Yeah, that's what I think too.
And then put a roof on top of that.
Yeah, I think so too. And would you knock off the masonry triangles on the gable ends and start with a flat?
I think I would.
Yeah, I think that's what I would do too.
Honestly, I don't really know what you would do with those little triangles otherwise.
I don't either. It's an odd. I've worked on a number of brick buildings when I was at Habitat, and they're all built differently because in that period of when this stuff was popular, it was the Wild West with regard to building techniques. Mm-hmm. But we took what was a commercial building and converted it into a house. It had a flat roof with parapets. As anyone who's worked on a brick building, parapets are terrible, both in terms of water problems and energy, right? Mm-hmm. So we took those down and then framed pony walls and used trusses because you have the problem of the walls spreading if you use rafters. And then we brought the sheathing down onto the masonry to tie the walls to the masonry for uplift. So it was a very complicated and costly project, but it can be done.
If he's successful doing what he's thinking about doing, would there be any issue with subsidence?
So that's another very good point. This building might not have footings, right? And so you're asking it to have a whole other story on it. So yeah, you could have some subsidence. I would want to dig down to the bottom of the foundation and see what it was bearing on, because otherwise you're going to need an engineer to tell you how much additional load you can put on this. And it's going to depend on your soil conditions. It's going to depend on the sturdiness of the masonry that's there. I think this is a big project.
Yeah. But the existing structure is about as heavy as you could get for a house that size anyway.
Oh, no kidding. Yeah, no kidding.
So, I mean, I think if there were going to be subsidence issues that may have already evidenced themselves in some way, but...
That sucker's already sunk a foot into the ground.
Maybe. I don't know.
So, yeah, I'd rip off the whole roof and put a second story in its place. And with your existing framing, can you go back to that first slide, Jeff? Maybe it's the third one. It's got this.
Yeah.
So the ceiling joists are running the opposite way of what they should. So that's
what I was trying to figure out. Like, how is this whole thing bearing? And it almost seems like he's got beams sort of like at the ends that are sort of carrying the ceiling joists, and probably the entire weight of that maybe.
And I wonder so the masonry goes all the way up to the ridge. And I wonder if the ridge is bearing on the masonry too, which is in effect preventing the walls or the roof from spreading, right? Because the ceiling joints aren't helping at all.
Except it looks like a one by ridge there. Just like
it might be
a one by ridge board. Yeah.
That's probably structurally not what you want.
Yeah.
If it's a load bearing ridge.
Yeah.
A structural ridge.
Yeah.
So
good luck.
Good on you, man. I think
it'll look better too.
Than this?
Yeah.
I don't like the greedy dormer idea.
No.
And it's going to be complicated, much more complicated to build.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Get some family to help. That's what I say, because it's going to be a lot of work.
Yeah.
All right, so Jason from Connecticut writes, we're considering redoing the attic insulation in our home in Fairfield County, Connecticut, built in 1958. We moved into the house about a year and a half ago, and we've been in it for 2 winters and experienced much colder temperatures on our second floor, particularly in the master bedroom. We realized something must be done to make the space more comfortable and stop burning through so much heating oil in an attempt to get the zone up to 68 to 70 degrees. Our original thought was to replace the old fiberglass bad insulation above the ceiling with low global warming potential closed cell spray foam in the roof rafters to take advantage of its air and vapor sealing properties. I also have concerns about detecting problems or even repairing the roof after the spray foam has been applied. Let's take this like one at a time. So, what do you think, Kylie? Well, would you be worried if you had spray foam in your roof and you wouldn't know if the roof is leaking? That seems to be what a lot of people's concern.
I would but I looked into this and there's not a lot of information about roof repairs after you've applied spray foam, closed cell. So why is that?
I don't know. I don't know why people worry about this, because like if your roof is in good repair, it's probably not leaking, but a lot of people have this concern. I mean, if it looks like it's in bad shape, then yeah, I'd be worried. I wouldn't want to spray foam without replacing the roof first.
Well, you'd want to have it inspected, right, to make sure the moisture content.
Someone should go up there and look around to make sure the flashings are in good shape and, there's not any blown off shingles, especially like when you're, close to the coast like they are. Yeah. But I don't think that's a good reason to avoid spray foam. I think there are other reasons to avoid spray foam. But as far as like not being able to detect roof leaks, I hear that a lot, but I don't know.
It must not happen a lot since there's not a lot of information on it.
Or no one knows, and there's like just rotting going on and no one's detected it.
Yeah. But I think the one detail that you skipped when you were reading is this is a vaulted ceiling.
It's cathedral ceiling.
Yeah. So the drywall is connected right to the rafters, I would suppose. Mm-hmm. And so they're going to have to rip that out to do the spray foam job. And you can look underneath there to see if there's any evidence of water coming through when you're doing that work, whatever insulation you put in there. So.
True, right? It's like you look at that stuff before you insulate it.
Right.
And no matter what kind of insulation you're putting in there, you want to make sure that there's not water coming in the building before you do that work, right?
Yeah.
We're also planning some other projects on the second floor, such as redoing the master suite and bathroom, and I believe they might require removing vent lines as we change fixture locations. I'd be hesitant to start poking holes in new locations of the spray foam, as it could end up negating the air sealing properties we're looking to get out of the project. All right, let's tackle that now. So I would want to know what you're going to do, and then either put the pipes there ahead of time, or be prepared to get some can foam and spray foam the holes that you are closing up, or you can drill through spray foam, no problem. Mm-hmm. For new pipes, I wouldn't worry about that. And you can fix, damaged or unfilled areas later with, either a two-part foam that you buy or with cans.
Big gap filler. The cans of two-part spray foam designed for DIYs have some environmental concerns and disposal concerns. So I try and tell people to stay away from those, but sometimes that's the only fix, admittedly. Do you have
DEET?
What's that?
Like DEET.
Yeah, like when you have no other...
DEET melts right through that stuff. Need to get rid of it? Just spray some DEET on it.
Okay. Do you have any insight or recommendation into the use of closed cell spray foam in this application? So should we simply count on annual roof inspections to help spot potential problems before they come big enough to require a fix that involves tearing out the roof sheathing and disturbing the spray foam? Okay, so this is a very common application of spray foam, and to me it makes a lot of sense because it also stops vapor, right? Open cell doesn't, so closed cell on the underside of a roof is a great idea. But admittedly, you want to make sure the roof is in good repair. Would closed cell foam normally be recommended for our climate over open cell foam? Yes, for the reasons I suggest, because open cell foam, unless you have some kind of air barrier, won't stop the vapor from going through the foam and condensing on the roof sheathing and leading to rot.
Yeah. The only wetting potential that he would have here is if it's coming through the shingles, basically coming in through the top if he's using closed cell. So,
is the attic still the place to start sealing things up, or should we focus on replacing the original single pane windows? No, never. Always start at the top of your house, right, with regard to weatherization work, because through the stack effect, in a heating climate, you got to seal up the roof first. That's the most important thing.
The roof and the basement. Because if there's any big holes down there, the cold air is going to get sucked in through there, and any holes in the roof are what's going to be driving that.
Yes, totally. And it's been proven that replacement windows are a very poor investment with return on with regard to energy savings.
A lot of people do that, though.
Yeah. And you understand why, right?
First line of fire, yeah.
If you're sitting in a house and you feel this cold coming off their window, like, well, that's the problem.
Exactly.
But if you have fewer drafts, your house is often much more comfortable. And with interior storms or storm windows generally, you can make...
he has storm windows, too.
Yeah, and you can make single glazed windows perform pretty well.
Yeah.
As additional background info, we would not be doing the spray foam application ourselves, but would be hiring outside contractors. The attic space is not used for storage, but does house the air handler for the second floor cooling zone. All the more reason to move the thermal boundary to the rafters if you have heating or cooling equipment up in the attic.
Yeah.
So as you said that the Cathedral was in the master suite, but he's saying that there's cooling equipment up there.
In other parts of it, yeah.
So it's not all Cathedral, it's part Cathedral and part flat ceiling.
Right.
And then the flat ceiling part is where they have this air handler.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you'd move the thermal boundary to the roof sheathing?
I would think so. It's much simpler to deal with it if it's all sort of like on the same plane rather than trying to, jog it around walls and, it just gets more complicated.
And you shouldn't have the cooling equipment outside the conditioned space, right? That's going to be a huge energy penalty.
Right. Yeah. You're heating up that equipment so that it can cool you down.
Right. It's always, but people do this a lot, and especially in the southern part of the U.S., people just automatically put the stuff up in the attic because there's room for it there.
And then wonder why it doesn't work as well as they said it would.
Right.
Then again, you don't necessarily want it in the basement, right?
Well, people don't want to take up living space, so they put it in the attic, even though it's like 150 degrees on a hot day.
Right. But if you're in a place where flooding might be an issue, you don't want it downstairs either.
No.
Right.
If you were building a house, where would you put your mechanicals?
If I had an attic, probably put it in the attic.
Are you worried about flooding?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Because of where you live.
Right.
Were you worried about flooding before you lived in a house close to a river?
I think about flooding more than the average person.
Why is that?
Afraid of floods? Always been
I think
that way?
it has to do with climate change and the amount of flooding that seems to be happening on a regular basis.
I would definitely agree. There's a lot of storms.
Yeah.
For sure.
I live on a hill.
Do you have worry about natural phenomena?
Not other than the water that occasionally gets into my basement, which my sump handles pretty well. Keeps up with. No. No.
I tell you what, since we had our macro burst in, it's been about a year now. I think it was May 15th. I get really freaked out by thunderstorms now. Yeah. I'm like, I look at my trees flying around and I'm just like, I worry.
Yeah, I've got insurance.
I know.
You're so casual, Matt.
If it happens, it happens.
I never used to worry about that. And my mom always was kind of paranoid about thunderstorms, and I thought she was crazy, but now I'm taking after her. It's what happens to most people.
I love
You become your parents.
Love it.
We're going to take a short break, but we'll be right back after this word from our sponsor. Does your hardwood deck need a makeover? Bring back the luster of the day it was first installed. Let DeckWise reverse time and erase its dullness to make the wood grains burst with natural beauty again. Start with our wood cleaner and brightener, and finish with our eco-friendly water-based formula, Wise Coat, or our low VOC Ipe oil hardwood finish. Protect and preserve your deck to keep it looking brand new this summer. For more info on these products, visit deckwise.com. All right, we are back, and we have a question from Cincinnati, Ohio. Marc writes, "Hello, guys. Your podcast is the best. I never miss it." Well, thank you, Marc. In podcast 175, you discussed helical foundations versus concrete. You did not mention pin foundations that have been in use for many years in the upper Midwest, particularly Minnesota, Wisconsin, and Michigan. They appear to be affordable, fast, and require little digging. Most importantly, they're supposedly more resistant to frost heave. I plan to use them on a deck I'm going to rebuild later this year. Could you address the pros and cons of these? You want to start?
Sure.
Go for it.
Minimal site impact. I know that
Should we start by describing what this thing is to
that's a good idea.
Folks?
Yeah, go ahead.
You want me to?
Yes, please. Products are your
So
your
imagine a big concrete block with holes drilled in it at angles that spread as they go down. And then you drive these what look like 2.5-inch pipes through the holes with a rotary hammer or a jackhammer into the soil. And
at
so
an angle.
At an angle. And these ends up with these steel pipes.
legs.
Yeah,
almost.
Legs.
just these big
Yeah, very
pins.
good.
Yeah.
And that holds the concrete in place and supposedly goes to frost depth to prevent heaving and stuff. I've never used these. I've seen them in ads and stuff, but Go ahead. What do you pointed out that you don't have to dig.
Right. And there was an architect that used one, especially if you have trees that you want to protect. I don't know that he does, but it's something to consider. There was a historic tree that there were a lot of restraints around it, and his solution when he was putting an addition, there's actually a photograph of it. Can you throw that up there, Jeff?
Yeah, so I don't know if I described this adequately, but
I think you did a good job. It's really simple.
It seems great, right? I just don't know if it would work in New England, like because one of the
rocky.
steel pipes hits a rock or ledge, you're done.
Yeah,
it's
but if
not
you have sandy soils.
Yeah, and I don't know what the geology is of the upper Midwest, but I think it's all clay and gravel and sand. It's all glacial deposition is my guess.
Yeah.
But that can include big rocks depending on where you're at.
Yeah. Just move it a couple feet to the right.
Sure. And oftentimes for decks and stuff, that's a totally viable solution because you have girders, beams that you can put the footings within certain, parameters.
Yeah.
I don't think you need
some flexibility.
Yeah. And I think you don't need excavation and fill permit.
Right. I have one problem with them. I think they're kind of ugly. I think
you don't see much of them.
Well, you see the concrete top.
I think they look kind of high tech.
Yeah?
Yeah.
You don't have to see that. I mean,
so what would you do to hide it?
Plant something around the deck.
That would be what my wife Carol would say. Is like that's a landscaping solution. Is you put something in front of it so you don't have to look at it.
I mean, I would say it's more attractive than a standard deck footing in a sonotube.
I think you're totally off base
because it's got the same base on top of it, and the rest of it looks like beautiful cast concrete in like a.
I think it's kind of funny looking.
Yeah, but it looks pretty good. Like it looks like it was done by a pro.
It's pretty low maintenance. Once you get it in there, it's probably not going anywhere on the pressure treated wood, footings.
I don't know did either of you figure out what these cost?
No, I saw them actually at JLC Live probably 3 years ago or something.
Yeah, I remember
that.
seeing them there too.
Yeah, and it seemed like a great idea then.
Did you ask him about the problems with rocks under the ground that the pipes might hit?
I probably did at the time, and the reason they were so attracted to me then was because
you were digging holes.
Dug something like 27 footing holes by hand, and that took up the better part of a semester. I mean, we didn't even finish the deck because we spent so much time digging holes.
That seems like a valuable educational experience.
Yeah. Don't be the guy with the shovel is the lesson there.
So I think these things are also built for disassembly.
What do you mean?
They're easily taken apart.
So if you have a temporary structure, this is a good solution. Okay. I know people like them in wet soils because there's no excavating in muck. Mm-hmm. But then you need some equipment to dry them so they're not entirely off-grid kind of installation.
Yeah. Do these things like those? Do they have a way of telling whether or not your bearing is good enough? Because I imagine you can just keep connecting lengths of post or whatever to this thing and drive it farther and farther.
That was one of the questions I had, and like I said, I have no experience with this. But
you mean extending the length of the pipe, adding to it?
Yeah.
Oh, and his question is can you verify the bearing capacity of this thing? Based on how difficult it is to drive the rods, or how easy do they go in, or do they have a huge bearing capacity that's not an issue once all the pipes are driven?
Yeah.
The pins.
Yeah.
I don't know. So
I found a couple of useful websites that
we'll
be
put
in
those
the
on the
notes.
podcast webpage, and you can look that up. I'd love to know more about this. If any of listeners have used this with success or not success.
The architect that used it in Austin for that reason, to preserve that tree, he had built a U-shaped addition. Well, he added an addition that made the house U-shaped, and the tree sits right in the middle of that space courtyard. He was thrilled that worked out the way it did because, he had an 11-foot drip zone that he had to stay away from, and because he was able to drive those stakes in at angles like that.
To avoid the roots.
He said it was a handy solution that way.
That's a great idea. I've heard of people building boardwalks and stuff through wetlands with them because of the environmental concerns, and you can't excavate.
Right. I think that's their primary application.
I've always been a big fan of helical pilings, as folks have heard me talk about, for several reasons. There's minimal site disturbance. You get verifiable bearing capacities, and you can weld virtually anything on the top of them for holding beams or posts or whatever, mailboxes, signs. I think this doesn't have quite that flexibility, but I could see you could adapt the top of it to hold all kinds of stuff.
Did you get the impression that he's going to do this himself?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, the equipment you need for this is much more accessible.
Totally. That is one drawback of the helical pilings is you need somebody with the equipment to put them in for you. Whereas this, if you can rent an electric jackhammer, you can buy the adapter that goes on the end of it to match the shape of the pin, and you could do this yourself in a weekend, presumably, which is pretty darn cool.
A lot faster than digging a hole.
Yeah, and more satisfying, I'm sure.
Mm-hmm.
We just had another question come in.
Oh, no.
Yes. I'm going to get it right here.
Radio silence.
It's bad, right?
What's our hold music?
Welcome
Welcome to the podcast. You got to do that someday. We're going to get Patrick to sing that.
Yeah, I was going to be Axl Rose for the reunion tour, but they, didn't work out. Hi, all. I'm a homeowner, and I have a screened-in, unheated sun porch, approximately 10 by 20 in size with a flat roof. The roof is pitched at a time when the floor porch was not properly leveled, and after jacking the porch back to level, water began to pool on the roof, and the roof began to leak. So, in essence, this deck had subsided. They put a roof over it that drained, and then they fixed the deck, and all of a sudden the roof doesn't drain anymore.
Order of operations.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah.
There is an eaves trough on 3 sides of the porch, but it isn't serving its intended purpose because of the pooling. Presently, the roof is tar and gravel. My plan is to have a contractor remove the roof and decking, repitch, and replace with new decking and EPDM. That's rubber membrane for those of you unfamiliar with the term. I would like the final roof line to be as clean as possible, eliminating or reducing visible eaves troughs. Do you know what eaves troughs are?
Please explain.
Gutters.
Okay.
So in some parts of the country, they call gutters eaves troughs. Do you know why that is?
No idea.
I don't either.
It's by the eave.
Right.
And
it's a trough.
it's a trough.
Yeah.
That would
I don't
be
know
my
if it's
guess.
not an inaccurate description.
No.
Right.
I don't know if
In
it's
fact, it's more
Makes more
descriptive
sense
than
than
gutter.
Yeah, it's better.
right, because a gutter could be on the ground.
Right.
And that's where it started, right?
Yeah, in the gutter. Yeah.
I know all about the gutter.
Get your mind out of the gutter.
Live in the gutter.
My questions are, the contractor has suggested EPDM, which would wrap over the edge of the roof and terminate in the eaves troughs. Is there a better way to do this, like a kick-out flashing? Is there a better way to do this, Matt, like a kick-out flashing?
To do what?
So the contractor is going to take the roof membrane and wrap it over the edges and put it into the gutters. Mm-hmm. I don't think that's a normal termination.
No, probably not.
They have drip edges made for this.
Yeah.
Metal or roof membranes, and that's a detail that's decided by the Roofing Contractors Association and the roofing manufacturers. We have a Fine Homebuilding article on installing a EPDM roof on a residential structure. I think it was like a little sunroom or whatever, and we'll put that on the podcast page. And that shows the right way to detail the roof edges. But I think you're on the right track with a membrane roof, because if it's almost flat, that's the only thing you can really do.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm wondering if the troughs aren't like built in.
Maybe they are.
Like, and in which case maybe you would lap it, but then you would probably want a drip edge on top of that and then more EPDM over the edge of that.
Yeah, and this stuff is all like spelled out in the rules that contractors follow for commercial roofs. The commercial industrial roofs are like very well engineered. Their details are tested. They're meant to satisfy the insurance industry, and building owners can't have their roofs leak when you own an appliance store, for example. Right? It just has to work. So this stuff is well thought out. So I would look to those commercial details for the right way to do this.
It's great advice, Patrick.
Well, thanks. The article is by Diami Plotke, who you've probably heard us mention on the podcast, the commercial roofer on Long Island. his company, Roof Services, does a very nice job in this, and I trust their methodology. He asked if we know of something that functions as a hidden eaves troughs in this situation to give a clean, modern look, something like a false aluminum fascia with an internal trough, or is this something that has to be custom or site built?
Well, I think the wooden trough lined with some kind of metal would probably serve the purpose that he's wanting.
It doesn't. He's in Brantford, Ontario. This is Andrew. So they have a cold climate. So we're going to have to think about the gutter filling up with ice and
which is going to happen up there.
It's going to happen up there,
especially on that low pitch.
So once again, commercial roofs have details that are meant to look like crown molding or cornice moldings that would be at the top of the residential structure. It's meant to replicate that. So you could, I'm sure, adapt one of those commercial products for this application if you had a good roofer. He asked, do you have any other ideas for minimizing the appearance of the eaves trough while maintaining good, reliable drainage? I've seen people put crown molding in front of K-style gutter or half-round gutter to hide it, and that can be either made out of wood or metal, and that's kind of a neat look and gives a house the appearance of old-style, what people around here called Yankee gutters, what I learned to be called box gutters when I lived in Pittsburgh. But that's the kind of built-in gutter at the edge of the roof.
Right.
Yeah. What do you think about making this look better?
I think I don't have a strong opinion on it.
Yeah, I'd have to see pictures.
I'd have to,
I want to see pictures of it.
I'm still trying to sort of figure out all of
pictures.
Yeah.
So, good on you for getting the roof fixed. And if the roof needs to be sloped, there are commercial products that build the slope into the roof. It's varying thicknesses of insulation. It's used on box doors and stuff like that because those roofs are built flat, and then they use the insulation layer that's varying thickness to create the pitch. So that might be a good solution if you can't get pitch naturally.
How much of a pitch are you talking about?
So I think a membrane roof only needs like quarter in 12 or half in 12. It's very minimal.
It's always amazing to me how little is needed to run water.
You just don't want ponding, which is like a low spot, because then
just put a drain in the middle of the roof.
That's what people do, right? It's like all commercial roofs have drains all over the place, and they have pipes on the inside oftentimes. So, do you think we answered that question for Andrew?
I think
as well as he asked it.
Yeah,
gave him some good fun.
I like the membrane idea. I think that's going to solve your problem, and we'll put that article up on the podcast page so you can reference that. Well, I think that's all the time. Do you have anything, Jeff?
Nope.
Unfortunately, that's all the time we have for today. Thanks to Matt, Kylie, and Jeff for joining me, and thanks to all of you for listening. Remember to send us your questions to fhbpodcast@taunton.com. And please like, comment, or review us however you're listening. It helps other folks find our podcast. Keep craft alive and happy building.